I'm Lorena Guillén. I'm a musician, vocalist, scholar, and music creator, a leader of my band group, the Lorena Guillén Tango Ensemble, and with who I had been producing amazing projects for the past 5 years. I'm lucky to be surrounded by extremely high quality musicians and human beings in that group. So that makes a pleasure to work with them, really. So it's a wonderful team. I originally formed myself as a musician in Argentina, where I'm from Buenos Aires. And I come actually from a non-musical family in the sense that they were not performers or players, but my parents were very open to what I wanted to do, so they encouraged me. They were great listeners, audience, and avid of different styles of music. So I remember growing since I was a little kid, like 5 years old, going to, in particular, one folk festival that my father and mother loved a few miles away from Buenos Aires, and spending long nights listening to Argentinian folk music, different groups and different styles, and sitting there. And so I preserve those memories actually, but I really enjoyed it. So over the years, I went back to the recordings that my parents kept in their collections. But also another thing that really influenced me, and I probably made me think about music as a way of expressing it, was that one of my grandparents was an opera lover. He liked listening to opera, but also tango. So it was a wonderful mix. I remember going to his house, and my mother was waiting for us for a Sunday lunch. Wonderful smell of Italian food, because they were half Italian, half Spanish. And my father sitting there in the living room listening to these recordings of tangos or opera. so so what happened that I was a teenager. Well, I was 10 years old, 9 years old, and I asked my mom first to study guitar and do guitar lessons. But when I was already 14, I was really involved in all the choral activities at my high school. I got a wonderful mentor there that really pushed me and helped me to develop more musically speaking. And I started to do voice lessons. And I really study in the conservatory. I finally entered in the National Conservatory, and I did the formal training as a lyrical singer there. So what took me here, it was further studies into that. While I was doing that, all this classical singing, I always kept singing folk, and I had a few incursions into tango back home. And especially when I was here, I don't know, it was a mix between nostalgia or what that really took me into this repertoire. And already 9 years ago, I started to sing tango here in the United States. And I got lucky finding musicians around me, especially when I was living in upstate New York, in New York City, tango musicians. So I started to perform more frequently this type of music at the same time than my classical singing. So I was really guided by a few mentors, like the one that I mentioned in my high school, but then even later on, some of my vocal coaches, while I was doing my master's in vocal performance at Buffalo, really insisted that, well, besides all this classical music, can you do some of this music, the Argentinian tango music? And when they heard me performing that, they said, well, you are really that also. So you shouldn't pull apart this part of your musical expression. And they encouraged me, and I started to play and perform there in Buffalo. There were a few wonderful spots to do this music. And there was especially one impresario, entrepreneur that really it promoted me there. So I recorded my first album there, and well, one thing took to the other. So that was kind of what the path, yeah, at the beginning. That I was thinking about this a lot lately, and I admire over time, especially when as I was growing and forming myself as a musician and maturing, people that was flexible and was not afraid of crossing styles, first of all, and that made their first priority to express themselves without fear of singers that were not fearful of making awful and beautiful noises. Yeah. So, and I'm very, very, I admire a wide range of artists, vocalists, for example. I don't know, I can mention from, I don't know if you know Kathy Berberian, that was an experimentalist singer, kind of avant-garde from the 60s that worked with Cage. I love Callas because it's not a beautiful voice, but she does everything on stage with her voice. I love Billie Holiday because she was also no fearful to do any kind of sound. Yeah, I don't know. I love the creativity of Bobby McFerrin. Yeah, so I mean, I can start to name a lot of people like that, but also I admire artists that it went beyond their own art and really made a compromise with their communities and making projects that really went beyond music even. And I don't know, there are projects that may have been influential to me, like the Yo-Yo Ma with his Silk Road Ensemble. But also I have in my inner circle wonderful musicians along my life that I met doing fantastic projects that are not big names, but I should mention, yeah, I have a dear friend, Marie Medina, that did a wonderful job in the Caribbean with social at-risk people, youth people, also a wonderful colleague, conductor, Mariano Valles, that's still doing wonderful work with youth in prisons in Honduras with orchestras. So I know people working at different levels that have been inspirational to me, really. So that's the kind of people that are my idols, yeah. To say that I felt really welcome. I found a community and a diverse community. So I feel that I can be myself and all the facets of who I am fit somewhere, yeah, in the mosaic of Greensboro, yeah. So that was really nice to feel contained in that sense. It's also it's a nice place. I have a job also, but it's also a community that gave me spaces to perform and to create projects like this. And I found enough people to be thirsty of engaging in some of my ideas. So that was like, wow, I'm welcomed really to articulate some of these projects. So I can't really complain. It's a nice place to have my family also, I have to say. And that's a happy medium for an artist, because if I can live off my music and also have a healthy family in a relatively safe environment, that I can give access to my kids to exposure to certain things that I want to, that's great, no? My next project is my next album, actually. So to make it happen, I have accumulated with the group enough material in these past 3 years since my last album, The Other Side of My Heart, through different projects and collaborations that the group did. So we are ready. We are ready. We have been playing this, fortunately, before all this started, enough, and video recorded live performances, but now we are ready to go to the studio and do the album. So that's the next project. Also something that was floating and it was kind of postponed, unfortunately, because of all this. It was a real nice collaboration with a bunch of student youth orchestras in the region, from Charlotte, Durham, here, and Winston-Salem. There was a project of creating an original piece, kind of a tango concerto grosso, kind of a la Vivaldi, but with tango, and introducing these kids to some of the instrumental tango playing. So, well, we will do it. We are not abandoning the idea, but we will do it because the conductors were already on board and engaged, yeah. I had a few previous experiences of this idea of bringing oral history and the voices of people telling their own stories into musical pieces, mostly modeled after one particular experience that I did with my choir. I conduct a choir in Durham that is the Triangle Jewish Choral, and I had been conducting this choral ensemble for the past 10 years. So in 2013, I teamed up with my husband and collaborator, but that was also interested in this type of thing. And he digged into archives of interviews with Jewish, well, people from the Jewish community in North Carolina. And some were historical, some were more recent, but most of them were either telling their story of their families migrating to North Carolina from different parts of Eastern Europe, and others were telling their lives in difficult times of the Depression in the Durham area, or during the segregation times here in the South, and how the Jewish fell in between these struggles, and were fascinating. So he created a piece for my choir in which you can hear these stories and quoted from the audio interviews, and then also the choir sings some of these same words. So obviously that inspired, said, well, if we did that project with the choir, why not to adopt kind of the same concept, but me approaching people, women, immigrant like me, that could share different experiences, because obviously I have my particular story, but mine is just one of the many ways of migrating to this country. And obviously I could relate to the backgrounds of many other Latino American women. So I went through a process of finding different people that volunteered to share their stories. Many of the organizations, the Latino organizations here in Greensboro and the Triad area helped me in that process of contacting some people and other people that I knew from other contacts. So I wanted to create an access to women in a broad spectrum, yeah, of backgrounds, experiences, nationalities, but also there was a limit. So I ended up with 5 volunteers that were amazing, yeah, from a doctor to a mom bringing her whole family from Colombia, a Bolivian woman that migrating as a young person brought by her mother, what was already here, with this kind of claims that you can do as a migrant, yeah, for your kids that are back home, yeah. Others like a Mexican a dreamer that she came as a minor brought by her mother because her father had an accident, a labor accident here. They were obviously not allowed to come at all, but then they crossed the desert and they had to do it because they needed to be with the father that lost a leg. So situations that are really touching. And well, they sat with me, did these interviews, talked through their stories, and there was an understanding and compromise that they felt that there was a value in sharing their stories with others. And also they found value in doing it in this artistic way in which it was put into a music context, because well, they agreed in something that I proposed, that music somehow speaks and opens up the possibilities of maybe dialogues that are harsh in other situations. So I was hoping for that, yeah. So once we had the interviews, we sat with Alejandro, I selected parts that became the lyrics of the different songs of the cycle. And also we selected fragments of the interview and put it in an audio collage that you can hear at the beginning of the songs. So you can hear their voices as well. So it's expressive in both ways, not only through the words themselves, but also through how they told their stories. Many mornings I wake up and I have to sit in the computer and teach through Zoom. I have many classes that I'm teaching at UNCG this semester. So I have to keep entertaining my students and busy. But I'm also trying to keep the spirit of singing with my choir with all the limitations. And it's very sad because we are a big group, mostly adults. I mean, elder adults make most of my singers in this group. It's a community group. They're in Durham. So they really, really enjoy and rely on this activity. So, but regardless of the limitations, we are meeting through Zoom, and because we want it to be safe. And for them, it's a high risk otherwise, especially singing together. We do sing-alongs. They sing with me. I sit here with my keyboard. You can see my keyboard, and I sing for them. And I mute them, and they sing with me. We are starting the process of doing a bunch of virtual choirs for which I pre-recorded tracks with some of my amazing musician friends that collaborated and volunteered, and pre-recorded instrumental parts so my singers can have these beautiful tracks to sing along. And I'm hoping to have all that ready for November. So I'm really involved with all that. It takes a lot of coordination and some recording. I have been recording a lot of the parts for my choir. I can't meet with my ensemble to rehearse, that's the problem. But we still are developing these projects and applying for grants or things like that to see if we can really get the support we need for our next album. So I'm keeping busy with all that. And being a mom also, although my kids, as I mentioned, are teenagers, well, need some attention, and especially in these challenging times, because it's challenging for everybody, and the whole family needs a little more extra care. I have to confess that I don't feel a struggle in it personally, in making art, in terms of that I feel fortunate. I have to say that I feel fortunate. I'm among those musicians that can live from music making, yeah, or music related making. I mean, it was a frequent thing along history that musicians did a mix of things, now teaching, creating, conducting, recording, well, a bunch of things. And that's what I do, fortunately. Now, I struggle in particular when I feel the indifference. And let me say that I don't feel, I feel also fortunate that Greensboro and especially organizations in Greensboro, the city of Greensboro, are really into the arts. But in general, otherwise, when the arts are disregarded or disvalued as an important element in the education of kids, for example, when they don't, the schools don't receive the support, or has been progressively dismantled of the support in the arts, yeah? I'm astonished sometimes to the level of indifference from public service people or people in the public administration of defunding some of the programs that should be in place, in particular in schools where they really, because I am a believer that arts really help in populations at risk. Yeah. So if you don't keep going with certain programs in schools where that really, really matters, and maybe it may be the only window and outlet to some artistic expression for these kids, that's a fundamental area in their education. And that is as important. Actually, it's going to affect in positive ways in their learning outcome at large. So I struggle with that. I struggle with that, really. And then for every musician, we miss the live performance, to have the audiences there. We are not able to do that. We participated in a few, well, just one attempt a week ago of a live porch concert that some musician friends put together, and I went and I did something only with my husband, that is part also of my tango group. He's the bassist, Alejandro Ruti. So we played something, the two of us, because we can practice and rehearse together. We are at home. But I miss that. I miss that, and I miss meeting with, for example, my choir live and really feel the harmonies. But yeah, we are feeling that void of not making music along with my friend musicians. Yeah, that's also very difficult. And I have to say that in my teaching also affects, because the community of young students that I have in my classes are really struggling through this hard time, not only, I mean, emotionally, but also in terms of the economic struggle. Some of them have to juggle jobs and the stress of being at their work and being exposed or not. And it's too much for these young people. So well, we have to be kind of calm and try to ease the things and the burdens on all these students, choir singers, and people around, because we have to be nice to each other. It's difficult. That's a hard one. Well, I think that at least my approach, it has been, first of all, to be truthful, yeah, and truthful and listen to my community. So be put my art at the service of my community. I mean, still doing art, yeah, because it's not that I pretend to be solving any big problem issue, but I want to be in connection with the people around. So I think that that's what is the purpose of art for me, yeah, mostly. Obviously, that is my own channel of expression, yeah, but it's because I'm very bad at anything else. And that's why we become musicians, because it's the only thing that we can do in our lives. Otherwise, you don't get into this, yeah, because it's hard. It's hard, and some people is going not to believe in what you do, and you will have to hear so many no's and rejection that you have to be really stubborn and convinced, yeah, of what you do. But also, I have been always interested. That's why I think I articulated myself through different activities that put me in that spot. Not only going on stage and producing my art, but even in those cases, sometimes creating these projects that involve something beyond the music itself that I do with my group. And I really enjoy in a selfish way somehow. That I think that is legit also. Because that's something that transmits and transcends to the audiences, but also putting myself in the spots of making other people to experience the music. So that's why I love so much my work with the community choir. Even if they are talented or not too talented vocally, but that they really enjoy is a community, is their social outlet, yeah.